Hello, Olatunji Shobodu is my name, and it's my pleasure to come to you again on this sixth day of the Becoming Authentic program. The Becoming Authentic program of the Becoming Authentic. Put differently, the how to become authentic. Sorry about that interference. How to become an authentic leader. That's what we have been discussing over the course of the last 6 days, I believe. And so today we are looking at your words examined. Your words examined. That's what we're looking at today. Your words examined. Again, by way of background, we started out on the first day providing an overview. And the overview was to set the tone for what the program entails, what you should look forward to, and how we're going to proceed to deal with and to deliver on the objectives of the program. Um, and so we did establish what typically the problem is with many leaders who desire to come across as authentic, indeed, to lead with authenticity. But as much as they try, as much as they put in effort, they discover that it's not working. They are not getting the results that they had hoped that they would get. And, at times it leads to frustration. It's haven't given it all, haven't done everything they believed was necessary to do, everything they knew how to do. Um, they still couldn't secure the right kind of response from their people, which is commitment, which is respect, which is trust, and which is the precondition for really making an impact on the people as the leader is supposed to, and also working with their people to deliver on respectable, if not excellent results. Yes, it can be pretty frustrating, but that's real, is the reality of the challenge that many face as leaders. And it behoves every leader to look for ways of working around these seeming obstacles, if not outright failure. Now, we immediately introduced one major aspect that would explain the disparity between a leader's conviction that he or she has brought authenticity to the leadership role and the verdict that the people, give to the leader. And that's the fact that the leader often focuses on walking his or her talk, while the followers, the people, are looking out for walking of the talk of the leader, but in the context of the leader's responsibility, or at least what they understand to be the responsibility of the leader. So we're saying that the gap between the verdict on authenticity of leadership is explained by a difference in the basis that the different players are adopting. The leader looks at walking his talk, which is one dimensional and often refers to the leader's efforts to align action with words, while the follower is looking at walking the talk, where there are many dimensions, and the follower is looking out for the leader to exhibit compliance with each of those dimensions. We did mention there are 7 dimensions, and the first is the one that the leader is very familiar with, which is aligning the words with the actions. But then, of course, you have others. You have, what about alignment with the leader's identity? What about alignment with the leader's gifts? What about alignment with the purpose of leadership? What about alignment with authority of the leader? What about alignment with results? What about alignment with principles? So if you take that, there are 6 others that you can take together with what the leader is most familiar with, and you have 7 dimensions that form the basis for assessing whether or not a leader is authentic. Okay, so we then have gone ahead to dig deeper into each of those dimensions so that you can have a better understanding of what it entails, a better understanding of the distinction between you walking your talk and walking the talk. What is important to mention or to reemphasize again here is that, look, there is your life purpose and there is a leadership purpose. The relationship between you and those who follow you, or those you are expecting to strongly commit to you by following you with everything, with their heart and everything, that they have got, um, is basically that you need to give them a reason to do that. You need to give a strong reason for them to commit to you. All right. And that strong reason is found in you operating within the context of the relationship. The relationship is a leadership relationship. All right. It's pretty well defined. It's not just any other relationship. It's not a love relationship. It's not even a purely friendly relationship. All right. It's the relationship between a leader and a follower. And so you can't pursue authenticity without recognizing that context and what the context, the import of the context, and what the context demands. Primarily, the context of leadership demands that you show up, all right, and you behave or you act in relation to the expectation of your followers, all right, what their understanding of what leadership entails, and therefore their understanding of what they expect to benefit from a leader. Now, as long as you overlook that context, chances are that you're going to run into problems, because they're unlikely to return a verdict of authenticity for all your leadership efforts if they can't relate your conduct and your deliverables within to what the leadership context is all about. And so over the last 6 days, 5 days, we have dealt with 4. We're looking at the 5th issue today, and we're focusing on words. My name remains Olatunji Shobodo, founder and CEO at Emet Leadership Academy. At Emet Leadership Academy, our focus is on leadership. We nurture leaders based on truth, and truth for us is found primarily in the Word of God. Truth, that is the foundation for doing leadership right, is found in the Word of God. So we draw primarily, biblical truths, biblical principles, in addition to over 30 years of practical experience to deliver on our mandate and in our area of focus. So I'm going to go ahead again and share my slides as we have been doing today. Like I said, we're focusing on we're examining how you become authentic in your words. That's the other dimension that we're looking at. That's the dimension that most of us are familiar with. That's what we typically refer to when we talk about um, being authentic, aligning our actions to our words. This is often a very important, an exciting aspect for me, I must confess up front. So I'm going to try and hold back myself a bit in terms of, the extent to which I go. So you know, I'm focused on delivering the very purpose of this session. Okay. Um, all right. So what is of concern to us? What's of concern to us? You know, again, please ensure that you walk the talk, not just walk your talk. Authentic in your words. Be authentic in your words. Our focus for today. And as our custom is, the focus is to recognize the place of your words and also the um, the significance of engaging your words in order to deliver authentic leadership. In order to deliver authentic leadership. So let me start by saying that leaders are defined by their words. As a leader, you are defined by your words. You are defined by your words. You can't talk about leadership without talking about what the leader communicates. All right. So when we when we speak on this subject of words, we're talking about what the leader communicates. But again, let me confess, I prefer to just stay with words as opposed to communication. Why? Because I think that communication brings, such a broad um, tint to the importance of words when it comes to discussing leadership, and that we can almost miss the essence of looking at these aspects in our discussions. So permit me to use more, of words, but essentially in the standard literature, um, note that we're talking about communication. Every time words are going forth, you are communicating, or at least attempting to communicate. It's just that, again, communication goes beyond words. There are other ways by which people speak. Um, and there's nonverbal communication, and it's just as important. But for our purpose, all right, words remain of primary importance. And I say that not because I don't appreciate the standard literature, but I think that when it comes to the truth and the significance of words, I think the standard literature plays down on the importance of words, compared with looking at the Bible and the importance of words in the Bible. Words represent the foundation for everything, the foundation for everything. And a favorite scripture of mine, which holds true under every circumstance, is John chapter 1 and verse 1. And it says, in the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word. That's where everything starts. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. that is in someone's possession. The word was in someone's possession, and the word was God, meaning that the word with you as a leader defines the leader. The word that you have, that you possess, that you let out, that you speak, it defines you as a leader. It communicates a great deal about who you are, about what you stand for, indeed, about what you are capable of accomplishing. All right? The Word was in the beginning, the Word was with God, possession, in someone's possession, and the Word was God. Now, it then goes further to say, and without the Word was not anything made that was made. So everything produced, that is, the Word has the power to produce. The word of the leader has the power to produce the effect that the leader desires in every follower. A leader who understands the significance of his or her words is very likely to be effective because he or she understands the power of words, understand what words can accomplish, and hopefully can apply himself or ourselves to developing the skill, entailed in using the word to accomplish purpose. All right. So you can't separate a leader and his words because a leader is defined by his words. A leader is defined by his words. And therefore, it's a shame if you're a leader and you're careless about the words you speak. If you're a leader and you don't understand the power of that instrument in your hands for doing leadership right, that would be a great shame. That would be a great shame. All right. So we start from that point in order for us to understand how significant, words are. All right. And therefore, leadership is expressed through words. Let me put it differently. Leadership is expressed through words before any other thing. All right. Because it all begins with the word. Before we're even told that without the word, nothing was made. So it means that results, output, or outcome follows the word. The word must exist, the word must go forth before it produces results. And I remember what it says in Isaiah 55, and verses 10 and 11. It said, "So shall my word be. It goes forth out of my mouth. It shall not return to me void." So the word goes forth first. The word in existence, the word in the heart of the leader must go forth first before results are produced. He said, "It mustn't return to me void, but it must accomplish what I please, and it must prosper in the thing to which I have sent it." You see the power of the leader's words. You see why you can't separate the leader and his words. You see why it's important that a leader pays attention to his or her words. You see why the word is a source of power for the leader. You see the significance of the leader's words. Now, you can begin to appreciate the fact that it's unlikely that a leader will come across as being, as authentic when first the leader isn't seen as one who recognizes the significance of words in his or her conduct of leadership. All right. Some people would say they are leaders, they're quiet leaders, they just like to do their own thing, and they seldom speak. Now, it's unlikely that such a leader will be effective. Why? Because the instrument, the perhaps the most potent of instruments in the hands of a leader are the words spoken by the leader. That's why I love that first statement. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Before you start talking about what the Word enables God to accomplish, the instrument, the channel for making things happen, for changing people and situations are the words. And that's why I said, yeah, I'm not a fan of using communication. It's too broad for, I think, the significance of the matter at hand. I like to keep it simple. I like to keep it at the level of words. And I think it's easier to relate to that. Now, let me quickly address another issue. Why I'm a bit opposed to the fact that, just to use the concept of communication and the way that we know it, is you often hear people talk about the fact that, lead by example, action speaks louder than words, and all of that. Let's make it very clear. Actions are important only to the extent that words have first been spoken. All right? Words must go forth before results are produced. Words must be conditioned. Actions must be conditioned by words. You can't act contrary to words. You can't be an effective example when the people don't know why you are doing what. If you notice that one of the things that we discussed thus far was to examine authenticity in purpose. All right. There is the issue of why. People are not robots. I don't want you to look at what I do to learn or attempt to learn from what I do without me explaining why I am doing what. To put you in that kind of situation is to be unfair to you, and is to potentially mislead you. Why? Because you can observe what I do, observe the context in which I do it, and not understand why I do what in such situations. So if you are imitating me and you find yourself in the same kind of situation that looks like my kind of situation, then you'll be tempted to do what you saw me do, since that is what you call my example, though you never knew why I was doing what I was doing. And you can take my action in an environment or a situation that looked like the same one that you saw me in, and you may be completely embarrassed. Why? Because as much as the situation looked like if you understood my reason for doing what I did, you would have known that it was inappropriate in the situation that you found yourself in. That's the problem I have with us typically just talking about lead by example, and to try to suggest that leaders should do more of example than speaking. Leaders should speak first and focus their speak on getting their people to understand what needs to be done and why things are done and how things work, because then they can understand examples. They can understand examples. The disciples are seeing Jesus who had, cast out demons, who had sorted out situations. He was their leader. And in some of the situations, they didn't ask him for why. They didn't try to understand why. And then people brought the same kind of situations to them and they failed in their attempt to replicate the effort of their master. They were embarrassed, they were humiliated because they focused on the example and they didn't fulfill the requirement. They didn't understand that it all begins with words, it all begins with understanding why, it all begins with an explanation. That's why we are told, my sheep hear my voice and they follow. Don't follow until you have heard the voice, the words, the explanations. Because it can lead to what you didn't bargain for. So they were embarrassed. People brought situations to them, they couldn't handle it. And they had to go to their master to say, look, we presented this situation to, your proteges in training, and they couldn't resolve it. Their master was quite frustrated. For how long are you guys going to be here? Is it that you're not listening to what I'm saying? Or is it that you are not making the effort to find out why I do what I do? And he promptly sorted out the situation. And now they were wise enough so that when they were with him alone, they then asked for the why. So, why could we not handle that situation? And he told them the reason. So, because of your unbelief. Why was it because of their unbelief? He said, because this kind, this kind, this kind of situation requires more than you thought you knew. Say it is not you can't handle it just by prayer. You have to add fasting to it. Look at those are words. Those are not, examples. They couldn't have learned from his example just by watching him deal with that situation in front of them, a situation they couldn't deal with. So what, but the way they learned from it, and by the way, that was the last time that they had that kind of situation, on their hands. They couldn't, they couldn't have handled that situation or situations like that without the understanding that he gave. So words are important, and leadership is expressed through words. So they came to an understanding when he explained to them. And that was the last time they reported that they couldn't handle situations like that. The last time. Very instructive. It happens, with us. If you don't want the religious example, these are things that happen when we fail to teach as leaders, which involves speaking. And we want to teach by simply acting, forgetting that everyone can interpret your actions from whatever perspective, they're observing. So I can look at your example, I'm your follower, my colleague is your follower, and we can explain what we can have different interpretations to your so-called example. And that's not what you want to do as a leader. You want each of us to understand what it is you are doing, have the same understanding, especially as we discussed, all right, yesterday on the issues of principles, because you operate by principles. Because you operate by principles. So it's important that you teach the principles. You don't teach the principles through examples only. You teach the principles first by laying it out. All right, seems that I have said enough on that. So leadership is expressed through words. the people depend on the words of the leader. My sheep hear my voice and they follow. If you truly want people to follow you, your voice has to be heard. When your voice is not heard as a leader, it's an indication of weakness. And it probably is an indication of ignorance, not knowing enough of the significance of your word for doing leadership right. Don't assume that your people see, that your people know. All right. The leader does not operate by assumption. That's why the leader must commit to teaching, to putting words out there consistently. So you can't but marvel as where did this come from? The idea that action speaks better than words. When words are the foundation for everything. And please don't, misinterpret my point. Okay? Action is important, but action is relevant to the extent that it is following words. It is meaningful to the extent that we have understanding of the reason why. The interesting dimension of it is this, is that wisdom is not complete without action. All right? He said, I would liken this people to a wise man, the one who hears what I say and does it. So it's a combination. It's a combination. Don't put the cart before the horse and vice versa. Both are important, but it's even more important to understand the sequence, the order of the sequence, that words must proceed before actions follow. Otherwise, what is the basis for assessing authenticity? Because on this dimension, which is what many of us are more familiar with, we're trying to align to, as we say, walk our talk. So talk goes forth before the walk. Because talk is the words, walk is the action. Okay? So, it's important to lay that out. Okay, I've used this example. My sheep hear my voice and they follow me. So let's look at the empowerment of leadership by words. Wherever you find a leader who speaks, you find the presence of the power to get things done. Where the word of a leader is, there is power. That's why when a leader is not speaking and is expecting people to follow, is the leader not just fooling himself or herself? Okay? Is the leader not just fooling himself or herself? Because that's not how this thing works. Okay, that's not how this thing works. Need to check something in my slides very briefly. Okay, so, all right, so the leader is, empowered by his or her words. Let's look at action in our words. Do your words come to pass? When you speak, what you share, all right, do your people ultimately observe the benefit of the words that you've spoken, or the intent of your words? Do they come to fruition? Now, that becomes very important to examine because of what we the significance of the words of the leader. All right. It's like saying, what weight can your people place on your words? What weight can your people place on your words? When they hear you, you know, can they take your word as it and run with it? That's what you and I would do with hearing from God. That's what we'll do with hearing from Jesus. That's what we'll do, would like to do with hearing from any leader. I mean, if I commit to you as a leader, I'd like to be able to run with your words. I'd like to be able to run with your words. You want me to trust you? I'd like to be able to run with your words. If it turns out that I can't run with your words, in which case I'm not comfortable with your words, because over time I've observed that there are things you say and they don't just, turn out the way you've said them, then you can expect me to trust you or to commit to you, all right, or to indeed end up with a verdict of authenticity on your part, because it means that you can be believed. All right. And what we're saying today is that the words you speak is a big part of that. One of the attributes that we learn about God, and you may have heard that scripture, God is not a man that he should lie, and it's not the son of man that he should repent. Has he spoken it? Will he not do it? All right. Has he said it? Will he not bring it to pass? Means that the idea of leadership, the your ability to convey to me that you can be helpful to me, or that my journey with you or the relationship that I have with you as my leader will bring value to me. All right, a big part of it is whether or not I can trust what you say. Whether or not I can trust what you say. So you find leaders, I mean, unfortunately, that element tells us God is not a man that he should lie, meaning that men tend to lie. You find lying more with men. What is lying is that you say one thing that is not true. And that can be that you teach us what is not true, that you try to make us believe what is not true, that you represent to us, a thought, a principle that is not correct, or that we discover to be untrue, in which case we reach the verdict that what you said is a lie. And that can't be happening between a leader and a follower, and the leader is expecting to be seen as authentic. Now, it wouldn't matter whether the leader intended to lie or not. What matters is what you say. Did it prove to be true, or it turned out to be a lie? That you didn't intend to lie, that you were sincere when you spoke, all of that are act after the fact, and they are irrelevant. In fact, what they also project you to be is that you are not one who thinks before speaking. Because if you understand where you are placed as a leader, if you understand the nature of your responsibility as a leader, you know that you are not supposed to say what is not true. You are not supposed to say what you are not sure of. You are not supposed to project what you cannot defend. And if for any reason you are in a situation where the best you can offer is a guess, you had better make it very clear that That is what you have said is just your own guess that the truth may be different. And if you ever do that, I'd also like to suggest to you that don't make that a custom. All right. Leaders. Yes, people say leaders are not supposed to know everything. And I agree with that. Nobody, anyway, can know everything. But leaders are supposed to know plenty. And that's why leaders never stop developing themselves, never stop learning, never stop growing in knowledge. But most of all, you also refrain from representing yourself and the things you say as being knowledge, all right, when in fact you are not sure. It's safer for you. It's safer for you. So I do hope that we're able to understand the dimensions when it comes to word and your quest for authenticity. All right. Look, I earlier made reference to these important scripture, but the reason I love this is that they express a concept to us, and you know they are not things that are far-fetched, because they also represent an ideal that each one of us should be aspiring towards. So when God says, so shall my word be, it will not return to me void, is not supposed to be just the attribute of God alone. It's supposed to be your attribute, my attribute, from the point of view of the fact that we have leadership responsibility. I mean, look at it. All of us we look up to leaders today, and we have expectations of them. How many of us would like to follow a leader whose words do not, we can't hold on to? Whose words cannot accomplish, all right, the purpose for which they have spoken. Okay, so a leader, announces a policy today, and then we're looking out to see what the policy, all right, accomplishes. Because when the policy was being implemented, we were promised that this is what the effect would be. And we're looking out to see the effect. And then it turns out that we don't see the effect. The next time that the leader comes up with another policy, what will be our disposition? Are we going to regard such a leader as authentic? If you are following that leader, are you going to be confident enough and comfortable enough to commit to that leader? No. You may follow the leader just because he or she is designated as leader, but you don't believe in the leader because their words haven't proven to stand the test of performance. All right. So when it is strong, and I mean, and why would anybody not commit to somebody who would say to you and who has proven repeatedly that when I speak, the intent of my words always come to pass, will come to pass. That's what your followers want. That's when they regard you as authentic. Anything to the contrary will prove to be a challenge to you as a leader, will prove to be a challenge to you as a leader. All right? Leaders are not intended to be careless with their words. Why words matter to your people? Let's examine that. And you may by now have been able to really answer that question. But I want to use one again statement of truth that you better believe it. I believe it. And it tells us the crucial nature of words. And it also reveals to us why your people take your words very seriously. perhaps more seriously than you understand. If your understanding of leadership and the significance of words for doing leadership right is restricted or limited, you know, there is that statement of scripture that says, by your words, you will be justified. By your words, you will be condemned. Notice, it didn't say by your faith, it didn't say by your action, it said by your words. It said by your words. Again, it's not that actions are not important. It is that it recognizes that actions, to be relevant, must derive and must be undertaken in relation to words. So instead of, so you have to go to the root instead of trying to deal with the consequence. By your words, it is not just a religious statement, it is a statement of fact in your relationship with those you lead. And if you examine yourself in relation to those you submit to as your leaders, this is what you use. By their words, you justify them. Are they authentic or not? Should I follow them or not? Are they worth me investing my life in or not? And if you don't justify them, you condemn them. Oh, don't mind that man, don't mind that woman. You better don't take them seriously. Their words, don't take their words. Take their words with a pinch of salt. That's what it is. Because you see, what they're saying is that don't adduce any weight to any leader whose words you can take to the bank. That's what he's saying. It's not a religious statement, it is true. Words are a cornerstone factor for assessing your authenticity. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. By your words, it's important where your people will place you as a leader, whether they will truly justify you as a leader or they will condemn you as an impostor. Let me say that again. By your words, your people, your team members, those who look up to you as leader, will either condemn you as an impostor or they will justify you as a true leader. Your words are that important. Again, you see why, it's a shame when a leader does not understand the significance of their words, when a leader jokes with his or her word. Because the leader and his or her words, we can't separate them. And the word was with God. If I relate with you enough, and guess what? Those who look up to you, those who follow you, those who are your subordinates, they understand your words. They know whether to pay attention to your words or not to pay attention to your words. It's not something that started today, it's something they've observed over time and they've come to a conclusion. Is this to be justified as a true leader, or should we just follow for the sake of the fact that he or she is the head and we can't do anything about it? But at least we can determine the extent to which we will commit ourselves to such leaders. Your words represent the greatest source of power as a leader. That's why it matters to your people as well. is the instrument for fulfilling your leadership responsibility. Call it your leadership purpose, call it your leadership promise. Your words. Your words. So at times, the issue of authenticity isn't even so much about your words relative to your actions. It's also about your words relative to whether they prove to be true or false. So you may also look at it that there are two dimensions. What you say, is it first and foremost the truth? Because if it's not the truth, actions are irrelevant. Actions are irrelevant. You can't act on falsehood and expect, results to come through. At least not the results of leadership, because as we have said, leadership is based on principles. So you had better lay out the principles first before you attempt to act on them. Because what have we said about principles? That principles lay out a way to get certain kinds of results, how things work to produce certain kinds of results. And principles make a demand of inputs from you before the results are thrown up by the process. So your actions are intended to be in line with what the principle spells. And therefore, you can't be saying something that is contrary to principle and acting on it, which invariably is falsehood, and expecting that the results of principle will happen. No, they won't happen. They won't happen. Again, I'm hoping if you have gone through, the sessions that we have given before now, you would understand a lot more about what we're saying about principle, and you'll be able to flow with that segment of my illustration. If you haven't, please just go on to my YouTube channel and you have access to the videos for all of the sessions that we have done to date. And I believe also, if you are just coming across this for the first time, you will be able on the channel to go through all of the 9 sessions, the entire series from day 1 to day 9. Okay, so there is power of authentic words. Authentic words is you speaking truth, is you speaking what we can assess to be true. Okay. The instrument for delivering the promised transformation of your people, because leadership is about transformation, delivering a promise of transformation. All right. Moving your people to the next level, making your people better than when you met them in very clear, very discernible, all right, ways. It is transforming their character. It is building them up in terms of their skills and their capacity to do great things. All right. It is helping them to resolve blind spots, shortcomings. It is adding value to them and making them far more valuable than when they came under your wings. So, the instrument for delivering that transformation are your words. And through it, you assure your people that you have what it takes to fulfill your mandate as a leader. Through it, you assure them. So you can see why they would regard you as being authentic from listening to your words. And they will listen to your words. They are listening to your words in order to determine whether they should follow you or not. Now, let me quickly go back to that example again. He said, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. He said, the voice of a stranger they will not hear. Okay? What it means is not that when the stranger speaks, they won't hear audibly. It means they will not respond. Why? Because they have come to understand that the voice of their master is credible and they know when it sounds, and they have come to develop the ability to distinguish between the voice of their master, which is the voice of truth, and the voice of a stranger, which is the voice of falsehood. That's what it means. So, your sheep are not dumb after all. Your sheep are smarter and wiser that many of you, many of us as leaders give them credit for. Your sheep understand that they understand what is at stake in following you or committing to follow you, that their life is at stake. And they are careful enough, even if you don't see it, even if they don't adopt any formal methodology, they are careful enough to undertake some kind of due diligence that helps them to confirm the authenticity of your words, of your voice. Because when they confirm that, if that verdict is in your favor, they will commit themselves. Who doesn't want to follow somebody who is such that when he says it, it comes to it happens? I want to. You want to, I believe. Your people want to do the same. So, as leaders, you and I are called. You can see what we are called to live up to. You can see truly this dimension of walking the talk, what it entails. All right, I thought that should sink in a bit. Okay, so like I normally do, I'm going to close today's session with another line of scripture. And this is what it says: let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. So again, this is for balance. Words are important. Words remain the foundation. Don't play down on it, but take advantage of them and let them inform your actions. That is wisdom. That is wisdom. All right. And notice it said, love with action and in truth. In truth. What is the truth there? The truth there is that first, the words you speak, they are true. The actions you take based on those words in relation to the word is also produces results that the words promise. So if you tell somebody that if you plant this orange seed and you follow this process, you're going to reap a harvest of oranges. All right? That's the word. Now, what you have described, is it true or not? You have laid out a principle. It's true. But then, action. So, first of all, what you said is true. The beneficiary or the potential beneficiary of what you said can take certain actions to confirm that by looking at other sources of information and all of that. But there is then the second part of it, which is to put that truth into action by doing it himself or herself. So he or she has to take the seed, the orange seed, follow the process you have laid out in anticipation of reaping a harvest of oranges. And guess what? When he or she does that and she reaps the harvest of oranges, then another truth, the truth about the principle that you have spoken, is further and undeniably established. So, when that person looks at you, what verdict do you imagine that person will return about you? Clearly, a verdict of an authentic leader. Clearly, a verdict of an authentic leader. At least on that score, at least on that dimension. All right. So that's it with our charge to you to be authentic in your words. That's it in our discussion of this fifth dimension of uh, authenticity. And I hope that you have seen how relevant your words are for doing leadership right, how crucial your words are in the ears of your people, and what they do with it, and why they must and almost always will pay attention to it in order to assess whether you are authentic or not. Your words will either lead to a verdict of an authentic leader or an impostor leader. The choice is yours. But now you know that it's not even about just your words and your actions aligning. It begins with whether, in fact, your words are true. All right. So I hope this has helped us. And I hope that it has provided an alternative perspective, you know, in quite a number of ways to the usual things that you have heard people say by way of quotes and stuff like that, you know, at least in the context of leadership. Um, all right, so that's it. Make it a date tomorrow. You know, at the next session, we'll be focusing on another dimension, and that's the dimension of authority. Be authentic in your authority. Okay, so before we close, I recognize, as I have done, you know, in each at the end of each session, that let me quickly say this: that a leader will struggle without authenticity. Is important to always drive that point, you know, home. Um, uh, Walk the talk. Don't just walk your talk. It's not bad to walk your talk, but it can lead to a disappointment for the reasons that we have been discussing. And so, you know, we have covered those 5 out of 7 ways to stay authentic. And tomorrow we'll be looking at authority. Be authentic in your authority. Again, I want to emphasize that being authentic is the leverage, your leverage for effective leadership at its very highest. I help leaders build leverage. So I understand the various leverage platforms there are to do leadership right. Nothing compares with being authentic. Nothing compares with being authentic. And so, if you have need in this area, you want to reach out to me. Do you have need? All right. Do you need help to lead with authenticity? Do you need help to lead with authenticity? You can appreciate the importance from much of what we are saying, what we have discussed, what we have been discussing over the last couple of days. You know where you stand, and you know I'm here to help you. And how can you reach out to me for help? Let me suggest to you right away that you can book a call with me, and you can use that link to book a call. You can also send me an email if you prefer to use that channel, or you can send me a WhatsApp message. My phone number is there, and you can reach out to me. Or indeed, if your issue is not just authenticity, as far as it's on the aspect of leadership, and in some cases, office politics, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll explore and see whether there is any scope for us to work together. It will be my pleasure, and privilege indeed to help you. Um, and so I look forward to hearing from you. Uh, Also, I want to suggest, please, I love to have feedback. I love for you to please express your comments on what you have heard in the comments area, and you can be sure that I will see them, and I would also respond to them as well. Finally, can I interest you and suggest that you consider join the Authentic Leadership Academy. It's a new community that I have put together. It's a community of like-minded leaders, each of us working to improve ourselves, to remain authentic in our leadership. And that's not something that you achieve overnight. That's something that you continually work towards. All right. I mean, you have to continue to sharpen your axe, otherwise, it can become dull. That's the way it is also with our quest for authenticity. We just don't arrive at the point where the verdict is yes, you're authentic. We also have to work to keep it up, all right, and to leverage it. It isn't enough to be authentic. Is a precondition, so so to speak, that assures effectiveness of your leadership effort. But there is a lot of scope to enhance effectiveness, and those are some of the things that we'll be looking at and dealing with and discussing uh, in the Authentic Leadership Academy. It's a paid community, so it's only for those who are serious about um, becoming, about leadership first, the subject of leadership, who want to put themselves out there as leaders, credible leaders, who are not just looking for others to be the leaders that they're expecting to have, but are not, shy to develop the same capacity in themselves and to make themselves available as leaders who can add value to community and to the lives of people in the community. All right. Leadership is a huge responsibility. Uh, the world will go nowhere without it. And you have the opportunity of being the same leader that you are looking to. All right. Stop looking at people to show up as the kind of leaders who would get everything sorted for you. Why not become one of such leaders? And it doesn't take being born a leader. Nobody is born a leader. It takes developing your skill um, into as appropriate. All right, leadership. There's leadership skill. You develop the skill. And therefore, you can grow to become a great leader, dependable, reliable, a value adding leader, one that is used as an instrument for transforming society. So, a token is required for joining that academy, um, and of course retaining your membership on a monthly basis. It promises to be fun. You meet others, we discuss a range of issues on continual basis. You can bring your own personal challenges to the table. There will be guest sessions. We listen to other professionals. We look at case studies and what have you on an ongoing basis. And of course, you can invite others to join us. So you have the option, of how and in what currency you would like to pay. I think, there is the option to pay on an annual basis. There is the option to pay also on monthly basis. There is the option to pay in, a dollar or in naira, as the case may be. But this is something. It's a step that if you take, you won't regret it. Now you can scan the QR code, or in the comment area, you will see the relevant link. All right. Because each of these QR codes is simply, your way of getting a link. For those who may not be able to scan the code, just look at the comments area, and you would find the link also spelled out in the comment area. So you can click that link instead of scanning the code. Whichever one is convenient for you, please go ahead. I'd like to see you as a member of the Authentic Leadership Academy. I'd like to welcome you. And my promise is that it's a decision that you'll be glad that you took. Again, thank you for joining me today. My name remains Olatunji Shobodu, and we've been talking about authentic leadership, how to become an authentic leader, how to walk the talk and not just your talk, how to get your people to reach that verdict about you as being an authentic leader, how to make your leadership worth every inch of your while. God bless you. And see you at the next session. Bye bye.